Hello, my name is Abbey Dickhudt. I use she, her pronouns. Right now, we're on Prairie Drifter Farm in Litchfield, Minnesota. This is my second year here. I'm originally from Mankato, Minnesota. Got a big family there. There's 6 of us siblings, niece and a nephew. And a year and a half ago, I graduated from University of Minnesota Morris. I did environmental studies and human services. So my interest is really in people and the land, which is how I've gotten to be on this farm. I'm really interested in how land and growing food is healing and can build community and also can learn history and also create something good today. And so here this year we're finishing up in at the end of October, and I'll be going back to Mankato, live with my family. So this is a certified organic vegetable operation that is CSA style, so community share. Oh man. Community share, CSA. What's the A?
Community supported agriculture.
Thank you. I was like, community share.
That works.
This is a community supported agriculture farm. So we have about 150 members between Litchfield and St. Cloud that do an upfront cost. And they get boxes every week with our produce that we deliver to common pickup sites. And so on this farm, there's sustainable practices used in field management, and compost is applied, and these are all things I'm still learning about, and you're trying to encourage, beneficial pollinators and insects, while also managing some of the pests like potato beetles, and so some of those are required to spray for. So this type of farming is what I have been exposed to. In Morris, I got to see a lot of organic cattle operations and some other vegetables, as well as farms that aren't certified organic but practice sustainably. And sustainably is such a large definition, but essentially trying to do your best to care for the land while producing from it. And those practices can look totally different. And so some of the things I'm learning here is that water management, that soil management, how to balance pests and insects, as well as just you have to get a lot of produce out for your members. And so there's some things where quality changes and, later on there's a lot more disease, so you have to adjust for that. So I feel like I've been learning a lot of lessons of adjustment in this type of farming. But I do have, my mom is from Crookston, Minnesota, and is from a larger scale conventional farm up there. And it's not a history I know too much about, but I still have an uncle up there who helps with sugar beets. And so also trying my best to learn more about that type of farming. But I'd say this is what I'm most curious about, because I think there's also a lot to learn from the land, and to be able to do that, you have to take care of it. So that's, I guess, what's also getting me into it is that learning curve I am on.
Hi, my name is Bryan Simon, and welcome to Lakeside Prairie Farm. I farm with my wife Jessie and 2 kids, Charlie and Anella. And so this farm is 217 acres, and what makes it unique is that it's got 2 miles of lake shoreline around its perimeter. So it's a peninsula that sticks out into Cormorant Lake. We're in west central Minnesota, Barrett, Minnesota. And so water is a big part of our lake, or our farm, and that's why we're called Lakeside Prairie Farm. And then what sets us apart from the way we farm is that I've taken some prime crop ground. So, corn and beans were recently historically grown here. When we got here, that's what was here, corn and beans, and we've taken that 160 of the farm's tillable acres and converted to native prairie. So high diversity native prairie, like 100 and some species of native plants that we've planted as pasture, and we graze cattle and goats. So I got into farming because of my love of the prairie. I got in a little different than most farmers. I wanted to manage prairie, and I came to recognize some of the problems that agriculture had, especially the impact that agriculture has on the native prairie. And I wanted to manage prairie in a way that can produce food all the while maintaining the biodiversity of the prairie.
I'm Carrie Redden. I farm with my husband, Derek. We're in Stevens County in west central Minnesota near Chokio, and our farm is named 12 Tails Family Farm. We are a certified organic dairy farm, and we milk 35 cows and raise our replacements. We also raise a little bit of beef, chickens, and eggs on our farm. We're a pasture-based dairy, so the cows are out grazing about 7 months out of the year, and then we also outwinter the cows. Yeah, so Derek and I are beginning farmers for sure. We got into farming as a hobby, as just when we became more interested in where our food was coming from and wanted to have a little more control over how it was produced. When we really made the jump from hobby to more of a job, I suppose, was after we got involved in Land Stewardship Project's Farm Beginnings course, and then followed up with the Journey Person mentorship course. So despite the fact that Derek and I are very much first generation farmers, we farm on a farm that has been in his family for, he's the fourth generation, so over 100 years. The farming skipped a generation in the 80s when my husband's mom and her sisters moved off the farm, and Grandma and Grandpa rented out the farm to the neighbors for 30 years. And so the farm was going to go away when Grandma was ready to move to town because no one else in the family wanted anything or didn't want to be on the farm, and we didn't want to see that happen. So we're here trying to make a go at it.
Hello, my name is Ella Robertson. I'm a member of the Sisseton Whapeton Oyate.
Hello, I'm Wana, member of the Sisseton Whapeton Oyate as well. So we are in the Big Coulee area of Peever, South Dakota. So a little breakdown of what we have going on is
we have a traditional garden where we grow heirloom seeds. One of our most important crop to us is our wamnayaza, which is a traditional corn that we received from a tribal member over in the Granite Falls area from Upper Sioux community. And then also we have our high tunnel, which Eric received through a grant from NRCS, the EQUIP program. So it's kind of a combination of the two, and then we added some tree fabric because we're trying to juggle having a garden and working full-time, so we don't get to spend all day in the garden, where traditionally our people, that's their job, getting food.
Gardening from day to day.
Yeah.
So definitely an emphasis on heirloom, traditional types of foods. For instance, older varieties of tomatoes, if at all possible, traditional varieties of what we have here. For instance, ground plums or ground cherries. Something new we added to our garden this year. Mm-hmm. Similar to a tomatillo. We have a variety of different squashes we grow. You can see the apple trees behind us here. Through the years, I have been attempting grafting, trying to make an everything tree. You know, taking different clippings of trees I've had or found across the Sisseton Whapeton Reservation anyways, and hoping to add it to it.
So we're trying to have an orchard.
Yeah.
So we have these apple trees, we have pear, cherry, we planted 2 peach trees, one took, and then this was actually our first year we hand pollinated our pear tree. And so we actually had pears. And so we were pretty excited about that. We found another pear tree down a couple coulees over. So we gathered some blossoms and we pollinated our tree here, which didn't have a companion tree, and it took. So we were pretty excited about that. That was our first year because I've had that tree for like 14 years and it's never produced any pears.
Yeah. So we do have bees for pollination. Something we've been working on for probably 3 years, something like that. It's been longer than that.
We started, when I worked in the planning department over at Sisseton, Whapeton, Oyate, we went out to Wisconsin to get our first start in honeybees for the tribe. I had no experience. Eric had some experience. And so I think with all things, we just kind of dive right in. If we feel like we're interested in it, we want to do it, then we just dive right in.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
And so kind of getting back, or we wanted to talk a little bit about the history of like our people here. And Eric's family has, you know, some generations back, they had a farm with cattle and
yeah, so turn of the century, 1900s type of deal, farming was sort of given to us as a means of supporting ourselves. So some families took to it, others didn't. Fortunately, I come from a family that did do well in it.
And it was a number of your families.
Yeah, it was a number of families. So, you know, I could name a bunch of random families, but anyways, it stayed in our family and quite a few other families up until the 80s. I would say prior to me would be the last generation where we were actually still into farming and ranching. I'm not sure where the crossover went, where for some odd reason the families just sort of gave up, and and I don't know where all that came from or how that came about, but so I'm a generation away from farming now. Slowly over the years with Ella, we've been putting our foot back into it and hoping to get back to that area.
And my experience is different. My family didn't retain our original allotment of land. We didn't farm. We did do some gardening. You know, as a child, I remember gardening, but it was a hardship because we didn't have running water, so we would have to haul water. And so I didn't have that. Like Eric did, I didn't have that same experience. So I had a limited amount of experience, you know, gardening growing up. And it wasn't until probably the last, 5 or 7 years where like we became really serious about it. I mean, it wasn't just like we're going to go put some plants in the ground and forget about them and they're all up in weeds and you're like, hey, I got some tomatoes around here somewhere, because that has happened. You know, this time we were really committed to it. And so then we are looking at using straw to keep the weeds from growing, because it is juggling those schedules and trying to be, how can you be committed, but not where it's taking so much hours and backbreaking work.
I'm Jessica Blair from Fire Rock Farm, and our farm is in Starbuck, Minnesota, in Pope County. We run about 550 acres, mostly grazing acres. My husband also helps on the farm and has a construction company. We have 6 children, ranging from 18 years old to 2 years old. We've been farming for about 15 years. We started with an organic mindset. It was a passion of mine to have a farm. I didn't grow up in a farm background, but my husband did. So we picked his brain a lot in the beginning. We are mostly pasture-based. We've converted, most of our land was cropland in the past, or cropland when we bought it. We've converted most of it to pasture. I really enjoy just working with livestock. We've seen the huge benefits of getting livestock on the land. I'm not big into farming equipment and that sort of thing. I just like being out in nature. We've done some cover cropping on some of our acres when we have grown corn and various crops. We've had good luck with that, and really just, it was a way for us to get the livestock out on that cropping land.
I'm Mark Erickson, and the operation that we've named our ranch here the Boss Ridge Ranch. The boss refers to the cattle, and we live on the Continental Divide, so that's where the ridge comes from. and we raise grass-fed, grass-finished beef is our sole product on the farm here, along with some chickens and other food products. And so I started conventionally farming here in 1994, doing conventional corn, soybeans, wheat, and alfalfa. And in the mid to late 2000s, grain prices were pretty poor, so we transitioned the farm to all grass, all beef. In 2000, beginning in 2007, and by 2010 we were completely converted to all grass and all beef. And so that's kind of been the history of the farm. And so we've been doing this grass-fed thing since '98. We started experimenting with it, and have been doing it pretty much full time then since 2010. So we've had up to 6 landlords over the years, and right now currently we're dealing with 4 different landowners. And to convert this all to grass, of course, they had to agree to that it was going to be a long-term thing because of the fencing, and we have 40 some watering locations spread throughout the farm so that the cattle can drink fresh well water basically at all times. And so it's a fairly extensive infrastructure required, and so it's a long-term commitment. And so we had the landowners out here when we were going to start doing this, and had a family meeting with them and explained to them what we were going to do, and they all agreed to go along with the crazy plan. So now we're converted to all grass, and it's taken about, it takes almost 10 years for the grasses to the land to reestablish itself as grassland, which of course, this is what it was before, was the tall grass prairie. And of course, as a operator, you have to get re-educated in how you think about so many different things to make this work. And so we've planted this in 2014. We reestablished 20 acres of the 400 that we farm as native prairie, as kind of an experiment to add diversity to the grazing mix, especially for the finishing cattle. And so that's why we have this 20 acres in this corner of the 80 here that's restored native prairie.